So we are at a location which is, could you tell me where we are, please?
I think it's Nut Lane.
Okay, and what's going on?
See?
So some protesters have parked a van across a roundabout here. Oh, and they're on the roof of the roundabout. Hello, protesters on the roof. Would you like to say any messages or have a chat? You'd have to really shout.
We're Extinction Rebellion. G7 are the most powerful leaders on the planet. They have the decisions, they have the power to make decisions that affect the entire global population. They have the power to take on industries and write policies and make agreements and commitments and actually act on climate change. But what they've genuinely done is just make targets for decades in the future. And meanwhile, people globally are dying in their thousands and millions. People being displaced, people nursing floods and hurricanes. We are in an emergency. They've acknowledged that, but what they've done is basically virtually nothing. They make these massive promises and they deliver nothing. So we're here to say we're still drowning in promises.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm not sure what the audio is like for you lot there, but I will repeat some of what she said. So, okay, I don't need to repeat what she said then, yeah. It's Extinction Rebellion, and they have blocked the roundabout here. There's lots and lots of police around. Smoke flares being set off. They're creating a sterile area. What's a sterile area, please? So they are campaigning around G7 and the fact that they feel that the leaders of the G7 who are all meeting here are not going to make the right decisions around the climate emergency. They want them to act now and have that as the biggest point of the biggest issue that they're dealing with, rather than sort of building back an economy, thinking about the climate emergency. Wow, they've got a lot of smoke flares going off on there. So, but I think traffic might be backing up. Can't see, there's another roundabout down there, so I think they might be diverting the traffic. So this is a roundabout. Just trying to see which road we're on. Excuse me, which road are we on?
I'm not too sure I'm Greater Manchester, so I don't know the road.
Oh, okay. We're right near Lelant Garden Centre. And the old forge. I think so. The old forge Bistro, I think it is. So this looks like to be a minibus parked across the road. I think the traffic is now being diverted. They're here as they're part of Extinction Rebellion. I can see an arm lock tube on top of the vehicle.
Can the ambulance come through? All clear. Turn round, all clear now.
So I'm not sure what the police are saying here. I'm just seeing what the police are doing. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Are you able to talk to camera at all?
No, I'm going to keep an eye on this.
Okay. Could you say something while you're watching it, or is that difficult for
What
you?
would you want me to say something about?
Oh, just tell me why they've come down.
Just step back for us. Okay. Just possibly let off small bombs, things like that. If you can stand, just safe distance. That's all. This way, please.
Or can we go and stand on that pavement there?
Fine on the island. We can send off smoke bombs and things like that, so you just don't want anyone to get any.
We can stand on that island. I just need to do an interview. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're out on the island here? So I was just after what Extinction Rebellion are doing here, and why do you want to be on camera or not on camera?
Well, I don't know. What would I say?
Oh, well, you're live now to Facebook. So, I mean, Extinction Rebellion have come here as part of to campaign around the G7. What do you think they're doing, and why are they doing it?
Well, they've clearly got one of the access points to the delegation people and teams in protest and action on the climate and the climate ecological emergency. So, as you can see, this van has 2 people locked on the top, and I believe 1 person locked inside, from what I can see. And the entrance to the Carvis Bay area that they've sealed off is just there. So I'd imagine that it's an attempt to get some attention from the world leaders and get their thoughts bent towards the impending emergency of climate instead of whatever they might be talking about over their canapes.
Thank you. Would you be okay holding out for a second, or are you not? Just while I get my, I just need to get my mono put out. Just for a minute while I get my mono put out.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you want to tell them how the police are? You can just talk into that mic and just tell them what the police are, how the police are acting.
The police seem to be quite cool, calm, and collected, and we'll see how they operate. They operate within the law, then that's fine, right? If they try to operate outside the law or bend the law, then
Hold the mic up to them.
there'll be people here to witness that, and that's very important because a lot of times Extinction Rebellion protesters are arrested what the police call unlawfully and handled unlawfully, but very rarely sees the light of day. There you go.
Thank you very much. That was an Extinction Rebellion, I think. Officer liaison. So he's discussing with the police what's happening. Okay. Oh, banner's just dropping down, and back over to you.
So here we are in St Ives. A roadblock has been taken with the Samba band. As you can see, this is disruptive times, requires disruptive actions. And they are bringing the joy and the music. We have had a block off and a cordon from the police. We are facilitated in some ways, I guess. But it's a beautiful action here. Many of these beautiful rebels have come out to bring a lens to the G7 leaders that we're here and that we want to be heard. And it's time that we've created solutions and start actually delivering on the promises that keep being fed to us by politicians. And it's, the chance here this weekend, there was a new one, surprise, surprise, G7 lies. And this is the whole point of accountability and being here present here to be told we want G7 to act now, climate crisis. Message out to all communities. We need to be mobilizing together, creating disruptions so that we can be informing communities, especially those those that are asleep recognize that this is a climate emergency. If we act now, we have a chance to have solutions that may protect us all. Here in St. Ives, we have seen warships on our coast. We have seen armed police officers walking the streets. We have a fence cordoned off on a hill that protects the few, the very rich, powerful people, and the rest of us have been excluded from that zone. This is an example of how we will be treated when the climate collapse comes. They will separate themselves and leave us communities to have to manage ourselves with no resource and no power. So it's essential that now we see here in St. Ives what they are likely to do to us should the climate collapse hit these shores. Get together in your communities, build some resilience, build those dialogues, and let's hold these 1% that are sitting in power on top of that hill here, make changes that will benefit us all, not just them and their corporate greed. Let me see if I can find some people for you to speak to. But it is a bit noisy and loud. And we have young spectators. Hello. We have young spectators here. We have the police here now. We've got a number of police cars here coming up into presence of play. Here we go. They're bringing in the troops. And if we look clearly, these ones got pepper spray. The siren to disrupt our disruption. This is when the intensity comes. And look, this is what the revolution can look like. We urge you to get into your communities, build strength, build communities, and get together and show the people in power need to hear the people. They are their elected officials to look after us, and our voice and our strength comes from mobilizing together. When we've given power to the very few that no longer serve their purpose, they no longer look after our needs, they are in it for themselves. And here at G7, we have heard many promises before they came to this table. Of all the promises, there's very few that they've enacted. They have been given lip service to the climate and ecological emergency. They had said that they declared a climate and ecological emergency in this country effectively 2 years ago, and yet we have yet to see any action that is indicating that they've heard what we've said, that they understand the words that they are repeating out at G7 at the moment. And so, as you can see, there is much disruption here. The community's come out to have a look. Everybody's here on standby. It seems we will be heavily policed. I suspect more is around the corner, which I saw when I came up to this place. It was almost like they're expecting us. We've now got... Yeah. Okay. But here we are. These beautiful, beautiful rebels. Woo! Right, now where is So I'm going to bring you to camera. Here we have with us today a young person that's from Animal Rebellion. And when we think about how, when we come to the climate emergency, how might the state look after us? So what they did, the police force here, what they did is disrupt peaceful protesting, disrupt a very calm, collective camp. And here is, you want to introduce yourself, my love? Okay, I'm not sure that they're going to hear that actually. We'll have to wait. How about we do it afterwards? I'm not sure that they're going to hear you. Once we get a pause or what's going on here. Yeah, I mean, if you stand here.
Towards the van. It's just slowly making its way up the road there. And I'm here, and there is a police liaison person who is not being allowed to move back towards the van at the moment. He's trying to negotiate with the police. I was told that I could head back towards the van once the vehicle had gone through. I guess that's for my own safety, but the vehicle has now moved, so I will ask. I want to go back to that point. I want to be next to the camera people, the other press that are there. So could someone escort me, or could you just let me go through there? I'm press. Okay, so I'm press. I want to go back to where the camera people are, please. The other photographers are there. There's no reason why I can't be there with them on the mound. I want to go back to where the other photographers. Well, when can I? Sorry? When can I go back there?
Well, I'll be able to let you know in due course, okay? As soon as I know anything, I'll let you know. Right?
The police are not letting me out of this area at the moment, which as a member of the press is quite a big deal. I will deal with that after the event, talking to the NUJ. We've got Samba here, so I'm not quite sure how much you can actually hear. And the traffic is backing up down this road. So as you can see, there is quite a backup of traffic down this road. Got Samba at this location, at this roundabout, and the next roundabout has got a minibus blocking the lane. The people locked on, I think both on top of the vehicle and I believe inside as well. Got legal observers here. Hello, legal observer. Do other location, which is just up here. I need to walk along the path for my own safety. There's more police arriving. Is it police? Not sure. Ah, well, this might be the removals team. That's pretty fast if it is. I guess they might have had them quite close on hand. So here you can see 2 vehicles have come along the road. So this is the location of where we are, so just so you all know. And here is the van. And this, I believe, is what's known as...
Right, if you could go around the footpath for me.
Yeah, okay, I'm just joining those photographers up there.
Just go around the footpath
Okay.
there, that'd be great.
Do you want to tell me what this vehicle is and what it's going to be used for?
Well, we don't know yet. Probably absolutely nothing at the minute.
Okay.
I honestly, genuinely, we don't know what we're facing yet. So once we have a look at it, we'll work it out.
Okay, and what team are you with?
What team?
Well, are you police or are you like removals?
Yeah, we are.
What's
Police, yeah.
You're police?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't worry, everyone will be safe. If you wouldn't mind just popping on the pavement there for me, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So being directed to the path, but I'm going to go and rejoin the other press photographers. Yeah, I think that was. He says he's policeman, but he didn't have like a police uniform on or a police number that I could see or identify him by. And he doesn't know what his job is yet till he comes and sees. But here we are heading back to van. I'm just going to climb up the grassy mound. So lock-ons are people who are locked on are sitting on the roof of the vehicle, keeping themselves hydrated with their water bottles. It is a really, really hot sunny day. They're going to be hot up there. Okay. So negotiations going on. But the policeman's saying that he mustn't, if he's there, if the officer liaison person stays here, he mustn't interfere with any of the police activity or get in the way. That's basically what she's saying. So I think his role is to be a talk point between the protesters and the police. I'm just going to wander along here. We've got some press photographers are here. And some
just stay there, please, no further forward.
Coming out of that vehicle over there. Oh, and people are getting harnessed up. They've got their climbing gear on. Very fast on a protest here. Normally this takes hours to organise, so I guess everybody was waiting around the corners. I guess I've got a lot of police here. I heard a figure. Excuse me, do you know how many police are down here for G7?
I don't know. I'd say.
I think it's thousands of police here.
Definitely thousands.
Yeah, so in the thousands of police here in these small towns of Cornwall, both St Ives and Falmouth.
From lies, from deception, from the 1% you defend, even though you supposed to defend all of us. Criminals you are, gangsters you are, sinful you should be. Hang your head. The direct order. Hang your head in shame. Take a knee.
So this is the level of policing. We've got a number of vehicles all the way up to the top of the road. Some of them have deployed themselves down onto street level. So we have a line at the back and we have a line at the front. So far, the beautiful rebels have managed managed to hold the occupation of this road. It's been nearly 15-20 minutes now, and this is what we ask communities to start doing. Make a noise, draw attention to the fact that we're not being listened to by the leaders of these G7 countries who hold a lot of power in making sure that we are prepared and ready to address the climate and ecological collapse. There is time, and we can do it. We can do it if we all work together, but not whilst the G7 lock themselves away and separate themselves with a ring fence and put warships on the seas and gun people, police officers with guns on our streets. This is this is how they're gonna police us when we have food scarcity, when we have water scarcity. Make note, this is what it's gonna look like. We are gonna be kept and caged and being given very little resource. So whilst we have the power, come and stand with these beautiful rebels who are all trying to bring the attention to the fact that when climate collapse comes, the powerful will hold military and police officers, because that's what we've seen here in St. Ives. We've seen the military and police officers here gathered to hold us. We are allowed to protest, it's our human right, and yet here we are being subjugated to fairly oppressive system. And if you kind of translate that to that we had 40% crop failures this year, and had it not been for global supply lines, this country would be struggling with food. Now, at some point, those global supply lines are going to be removed, because guess what? They're going to need to be feeding their own countries. So what are we going to do? What will happen is that we won't have enough food, and the very rich, with the powerful police force and military, will extract all that, just as they have been doing all this time and all these centuries, extracting wealth and power out of the people's hands. And that's what the real demand here is: tell the truth, act now. And as communities, get together, mobilize, and make sure that you know who your neighbor is and that you can work to, because there's so many local solutions that could be had right now if we all work together and get those in place into communities, so that we can show what this magical world could be looking like should we all get together and have a voice and have power to translate some of those solutions. And at the moment, those solutions aren't being translated because governments are promising things, but they're not actually acting. So this is the key thing that we're asking G7, is to act now. That we have the information, we have many of the solutions, and we need them to act now with all those promises that they're making here at G7 in St. Ives.
Now! And Boris's name's Alexander de Piffle. Lie about his name, amongst other shit. By the way, it's a tuna word, I'm allowed to say it's in dictionaries. How you say, you right?
So beautiful samba today, in a gorgeous day, and yeah, that police line just keeps getting more and more seems to be coming through.
So it's day 3 of the G7. It's after 3 o'clock, and we've got 2 people sitting on top of a van saying still drowning in promises, act now. And we've got them talking to man in blue. Police everywhere, all the roads are blocked. We've got samba bands playing in the background. So today's the last day of the G7 summit. This is a stark reminder to the people in charge that the world is still watching them, and a reminder that whatever they do, they're going to be watched. Looks like we got 2 people on top of the van. Looks like they got a tube, got some water. Sitting on something comfortable. If you didn't see what was below this, it would just look like an ordinary Sunday afternoon. People could be just sitting in the park. And you zoom out and you get to see what's going on. Just gonna walk over this way. Get a little bit closer. So it looks like the police have got some climbing gear now. The guy's looking at his notes, doing a risk assessment. Oh, I've just noticed you've also got, there's a driver in the car. I can see him fanning his face at the moment. Must be quite hot in there. So looks like they're lying down now. Getting a bit more comfortable. Just gonna pan over this way. Sign says A3074, closed all traffic, residents follow diversion. Looks like more support's coming in. Okay, we're going to go and see what else is going on. Okay, we're going to go and go to the other location and see what's going on. Okay, cool. Everyone, we are on at day 3. We've got a great action in front of us at the minute. We can see people moving in and surrounding everyone at the minute. I'm going to be taking a step back, but this is day 3, and today was the day that the G7 leaders are discussing climate and nature. So this is a crucial day for us being here and to make our voice heard. That to tell the G7 leaders that we are watching them and to hold them accountable for the actions that they are taking. We've seen a lot of greenwash in the past years. Governments have said that they're going to take action. They've set a target of 2050 net zero targets, but we can't see any actions being put in place. 2050, by the way, is way too late. We're already going to see catastrophic effects of climate change by that time. We need to achieve net zero as soon as possible. But our governments think that net zero by 2050 is okay, and we are here to tell them that it's not. We're here to also tell them to put the climate targets in law, because at the minute it's not in law, and corporations and governments are not obliged to
follow them. Once we do put them into law, they will be obliged to act accordingly and legally. So that's one of our demands being here, asking the G7 nations to put these climate targets into law. We're also asking for governments to cut fossil fuel finance. They're still seeing these G7 nations, even though they're saying they're making promises, they're still investing into fossil fuels. Billions of money into fossil fuels, billions of taxpayers' money into fossil fuels. They're still subsidizing fossil fuels, whilst the tax on renewable energy is still high. They're saying one thing, but doing another thing, just to make us all happy. But we can see through all of their lies. And we are here sending a powerful message to them all that we are watching. The last 2 days have been very eventful, and we've had the people of Cornwall on our side. They've been very, very supportive. The last 2 days we've had marches, and they've been really good. But today we're escalating our actions to get our message loud and clear. We can see that the police presence is slightly starting to build up, and they're starting to surround everyone around this island. That a few people have been locked on, and a few banners are standing on the road as well, and a few people have been glued on as well. The other thing that we are calling the G7 nations to do is asking them to make ecocide an international crime. We are still seeing loads of development and loads of governments saying that they're going to protect nature, but they're still bringing into they're still going ahead with projects that are destroying this planet. We're still seeing projects in development cutting down trees to make space for more buildings, for more infrastructure, and these projects are being touted as green and sustainable, but it's all greenwashing. For example, we've got an example in the UK where we've got HS2, which is being marketed as a green and sustainable project, but it's not going to be carbon neutral in 120 years. And about £200 billion of taxpayers' money is being used to finance that project. And similarly, we're seeing other G7 nations as well still carrying on with destructive fossil fuel projects as well. For example, in Canada, they're still carrying on with the tar sands project. The US, luckily, Biden has sort of cancelled the key XL pipeline that was due to transport fossil fuels. So luckily, that's been cancelled. But we need to see other nations cancelling these destructive projects as well. The G7 nations need to lead the rest of the world by example as well, so that other smaller nations can follow in their footsteps. We can't just blame it on the global south. We can't just blame it on single countries. We all need to come together and act. And we, Extinction Rebellion, feel like it's necessary to make our voices heard. Whoever's watching this is it. This year is so crucial to fight the climate crisis. We need to put actions into place. We've got G7 now, and after G7 we've got the COP26, which is going to be a crucial moment to make decisions and to get the world back on track to solving the climate crisis. If you're watching this right now, please join us, get involved, get your voice heard, join one of our actions, and you can take action in whatever form you want as well. It doesn't need to be protest. It can be anything to do with media. It can be raising awareness through different ways about the climate crisis. It can be talking to you. It can be talking to your friends about it. Just creating a conversation makes a huge difference. And stand with us. You don't need to join Extinction Rebellion necessarily. You can join any other organization. We've got Fridays for Future. We've got Greenpeace, Friends of the Earth, whatever suits you. Join any of these environmental organizations to get the message out there about the climate crisis. We've just got a few more years to take action. And the people who will be affected by the climate crisis will be mainly the global south. The people who have the least to do with the climate crisis, they are the ones who are going to be affected. We have the moral responsibility as people, as myself, knowing about the climate crisis. I studied about the climate crisis, and we can't ignore the facts. We've known about the climate crisis. We know what fossil fuels were going to do to the environment for a long time, for more than 40 years. But governments have lied to us this whole time, and they've just told us that everything's going to be okay. But nothing's going to be okay. Nothing's going to be okay. We've got to think about our future generations, not just about ourselves. Our future generations, our kids' future, to ensure that they have a just and a safe future ahead of them, and so that humanity can also thrive beyond this generation. What governments are doing are just sleepwalking into disaster. The actions we're doing today we feel are completely necessary. The actions we're doing today, we feel are completely necessary to get our voices heard. Okay, Director Vlad, you can take us to the next location.
So thank you for that. So it's all about taking action, doing what you can. So saying it doesn't have to be Extinction Rebellion, you don't have to climb up on top of a van. It can be Greenpeace, it can be your local transition town, it can be whatever, but you just need to actually start acting and act now. We're running out of time. We've got now two people they're now facing each other. They've been moving around on top of the van a little bit, getting more comfortable. One's looking quite relaxed. We've got more police officers have come now surrounding the van. We can hear drumming going on in the background. They're forming a perimeter. We've got a police liaison officer speaking to one of the police officers. It looks like in the background we've got a climbing team doing a risk assessment. Yeah. Anything else you notice going on here?
No.
Yeah.
Not at the moment. I think
Yeah.
they're just doing a risk assessment.
Looks like a risk assessment. Yeah.
Okay,
We can hear
reinforcement team.
Reinforcement team. Yeah, we can hear.
Asked us to come down.
Okay, he's saying the police have asked us to come down.
We will come down if Johnson, our Prime Minister, will come and talk to us.
He said we will come down if Johnson, our Prime Minister, will come down to us.
He's not coming to talk to us about the climate and ecological emergency and the rich nations of the world, which are 7 nations, are continuing business as usual, drowning us in promises. As a result, we will stay on the roof until they bring us Johnson. We will engage with Johnson in a peaceful conversation.
He's saying he's going to engage with Boris Johnson.
We have been arrested for suspected obstruction of the highway.
You said that they're being arrested for suspected obstruction of the highway. So he's saying that they're given the opportunity to come down. They said if they come down, they're allowed to come down. And he said we will only come down if Boris Johnson, our leader, comes and talks to us in a civilised manner about the climate emergency.
We have asked for some water water for drinking, which they have said they will bring up to us.
He's highlighting the fact that they've asked for water and they said they're going to be getting water. The police liaison is talking to the police here. We've got a climbing team. We've got people, I don't know what they're doing. They're doing something with the car jack. They've taken, you know, it's air hoses. So I don't know if it's to deflate or re-inflate the wheels. Any idea what's going on with the car wheel, Zoe? Car wheel?
I don't know. Does it look like a flat tyre?
I don't know.
Or it might be to stabilise it if they're using a cherry picker to get them off the roof.
So we've got now a car. Actually, it's more like a tow truck, like a mini tow truck. It's a Land Rover type vehicle, not very good at vehicles. Has just reversed into where the van is. So I actually don't know what's in the back of that either. So more importantly is, yes, this might be a roadblock, but the bigger issue that we're talking about, again, it's back to the fact that we've got a climate crisis happening here. And it's been spelt out over the weekend by various different people we've spoken to.
Someone would thank those wonderful drummers for keeping our spirits up.
There you go. He's asking if it'd be wonderful if somebody thanks those wonderful drummers.
If you went home, yes, you do.
There you go.
Want to come and meet some of the old people there that are crying down their wits.
It's upset local resident.
Far greater happening on this planet than this van and us on top of it.
The protesters highlighting the fact that there's something far greater.
No longer have homes because extreme weather caused by the climate and ecological emergency. If they are frightened.
He's talking about the people that are losing their homes because of the ecological and climate emergency, asking if they're frightened. So again, this is the last day of the G7 summit. And the wider issue here is really highlighting to the world leaders and friends who arrived here from various parts around the world, flying in, and who are in charge of vast amount of wealth. The G7 countries in themselves control over 50% of the world's GDP. It's an elitist club. Came from after the oil crisis to set currency rates. Went up to the G8 with Russia. Russia was kicked out. Went back down to the G7. They get together every year. Last year was skipped because of the COVID crisis. And they talk about very important issues, namely taxation, and it's a lot of it's actually around GDP. You know, they have things on the agenda that they talk about, like at the moment is COVID. They're also talking about the recovery and about climate change. And from talking to Tom from the Tradition Town movement, he's highlighting the fact that we're having years and years and years of failure happening. And the amount of CO2 is rapidly increasing, which is measurable. So whatever targets that are put in place by governments is simply not good enough, because we know the actual temperatures are rising. 2020 and 2016, the joint hottest years on record ever since records began. It's the hottest record temperatures in Europe. We had most horrific forest fires in Australia, across North America, California, even Colorado was burning, right down to parts of the Amazon, and we had fires in Siberia. Very worryingly, the fires in Siberia, record temperatures, something like 37 degrees in parts of the Arctic Circle, and this causes parts of the permafrost to deteriorate, and it's all a big knock-on effect. This weekend we also got to talk to Extinction Rebellion doctors who are highlighting the fact that the increased rate of global pandemics is because of us destroying the biosphere and destroying the natural habitat of animals and mammals on this planet, which is increasing the risk of spreading of diseases. and it is also having a knock-on effect also with the likes of battery farming and our high intensity farming of spreading of diseases. We're also talking the fact likes of the UK, London will have temperatures of 43 degrees by 2050, the equivalent to like a Barcelona. Most of our houses in the UK are not equipped for those types of temperatures. This is going to cause extreme stress. We witnessed that last year as well with the record temperatures in the UK. We had 6 nights that it didn't dip below 21 degrees. We had a heat wave, we had a drought, and we also had record flooding all in one year. 38% of the wheat harvest in the United Kingdom was destroyed because of the severe weather events that we had, and this is 2020, and this is at 1.1 degrees of warming. Current projections is we're going to have 2.5 upwards, 3.5, and even upwards, depending what we actually do, or what actions are taken, or what actions are not taken. There's a sign saying, "Where is your plan?" Here, police helicopters overhead. So it looks like now I can see what was happening. It wasn't, it's kind of a rope. It's a rope that's attached to the front tyre. So it's gone the whole way through. Looks like a pulley device. Obviously, well, I'm just guessing to pull the van out of the road. One thing's for certain is the G7 leaders, and more importantly, the media from the G7 countries, plus friends, are all going to be aware of what was happening in St. Ives. One, what the G7 summit was about, and also for the fact that we've had so many different protesters highlighting different causes. Extinction Rebellion highlighting the ecological and climate emergency the world is facing. I've had many speakers from the movement of movements talking about how different countries are going to be affected. We're also heard about regimes like Burma, the loss of democracy and atrocities of genocide that's happening in their country. We also learned about Ethiopia, what's happening over there. We spoke to people from India about the government over there, the treatment of farmers. We're very lucky in this country. We have a right to protest. We have a right to come to the streets and to demonstrate. That right soon might be affected and changed. The police crime sentencing and courts bill gets passed. These protesters are well aware that by doing this they will get arrested. They're given the option to come down off the van, and negotiation, he said, we'll come down from the van if Boris Johnson will come and have a conversation with us, which is extremely unlikely. So you can still hear the drumming going in the background. They're now attaching the back wheels as well, so I'm just guessing the other side of the vehicle has been done. It looks like a quite large transit van, which looks like a dragon painted on the side of it. Now we've got a retractable ladder is going up. So yeah, so back to some of the conversations with Transition Town, and it was quite stark the message that was coming out that they started this movement in 2006, and in that time, in the last 15 years, CO2 emissions have actually increased an additional 30%. Also learned about the protesters from Colombia on the second day, that they're actually having the most severe murders happening of the earth defenders and the indigenous population over there. And it's got to do with fight over land, a lot of corruption, deforestation. Conversation going on now between the liaison officer and the police liaison officers. I think I'll just take this moment to thank the hosts here in Cornwall, people from the southwest, being great hosts, and also for getting to talk to the locals and getting educated about the problems that they're having here in Devon and Cornwall. They've got a disproportionate amount of poverty here. Also a shout out to Ocean's Rebellion and the amazing shows that they're putting on. The Blue Mermaids at 5 o'clock in the morning, dying on the beaches. Very visual, very powerful. Red Rebels, as gracious as ever, keeping everything calm. We've also had the Green Rebels. And a very powerful, solemn penitence walk. The conversations with the locals in St. Ives and Falmouth have been very positive towards the protests that have been happening and actually understanding the reason. Okay. We've got police motorbikes coming through. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. A black van coming through. Police escort through the blockade. Also a reminder, we've got the COP26 Conference of Parties, that's the United Nations Conference of Parties. The 26th is happening in Glasgow later this year in October. And that's when all the world leaders, well nearly all of them, 198 countries coming together to talk about putting in their contribution, their national contribution of what their greenhouse gas emission reduction targets are going to be. It's something that was highlighted by Tim Crossland from Plan B, is quite a lot of the poorer nations can't afford to actually send delegates and be represented the same way that the richer nations are represented. And some of the low-lying oceanic countries are going to be the first to literally go under the seas with the rising sea. First countries to be lost to climate change, unable to represent themselves. And also what happens at these conferences, at the Paris Agreement, they got bullied. Quite a lot of the smaller countries got bullied. They were told that they had to accept what was on the table. I got another more police coming through now. Motorbikes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Two more Land Rovers coming through the blockade. And we've got a rope. Oh, I have to say that was pretty pathetic. Oh, and now we have a JCB has just arrived with a platform. So JCB is coming along. It's probably been on already all weekend. Same time, we've got a ladder now going onto the roof. There are people who strap the van on. Cherry pickers now going up. I have to say, this is a giant cherry picker. Look at the size of this. I think that could actually pick up the van. Rebels are now standing. You can see quite clearly the lock-on that they have. Where's your plan? A lot of conversations as well this weekend is governments are very good at putting in targets in place. Perfect example is the going net zero by 2050, only 29 years away. Yet, according to the science, we actually have to decarbonise, rapidly decarbonise at the end of this decade. So we've got 9 years left. Who would you prefer to believe? World-leading climate scientists or politicians? So the gargantuous cherry picker is now parked up. We have the climbing team are in place. Got 3 on one side. Let's go and zoom in a little bit. Get more. And remember, we've got one person who's still in the driver's seat. It's very hard to see him or her. Let's try and zoom in a bit as well, just to make out the person. We've also had talks about the CE bill, Climate and Ecological Emergency Bill. So if you haven't already, here's a quick reminder, if you want to take action at home right now, you can contact your local MP and ask them to support the CEE bill. You can write to them, you can request a meeting with them. If you haven't read about it, I'd advise you to go and Google the CEE bill and read up about it and understand why we need it. We need to update the 2018 Climate Change Act. And also just talking about ACT now, the fact that we have a carbon budget in this country, and by the government's own department, the Committee on Climate Change that was set up in 2008, they had 2 different reports coming out. One of the reports had 34 indicators, and the UK is failing on 31 out of 34 indicators. A reminder, we've got 27 million properties we need to retrofit, insulate and change the heating systems of. And even that, we had a pretty pathetic small amount of money put towards it, part of the green recovery. So I think it's about 2 or 3 billion was pledged, but apparently some of that money that was pledged had already been pledged before. And they gave 16.8 billion to EasyJet, to several other airlines, Ryanair, BA. They bailed out a car manufacturer, some fast fashion companies. So giving literally billions of our money, because it's taxpayer money through quantitative easing that they printed off, that all could have gone towards a green recovery. We could have got that same money, we could have invested that into retrofitting Britain, which would have created tens, actually hundreds of thousands of jobs up and down across the country. All the jobs are all local because it's we need to have local tradespeople, we need to get people trained up to actually do this work. It would have been a fantastic kickstart. We didn't get that. We're not getting the pledges that are in place, we're not getting the funding that's needed. Meanwhile, we're hearing about the amounts of the banks and financial institutes have invested in fossil fuel expansion since the Paris Accords 2015. 2.4 trillion has been invested in new oil and gas and infrastructure for hydrocarbons. Same year, this year, in 2021, we had the International Energy Agency come out with their report, the world leading authority on energy for the oil and gas industry and the renewables, and they came out and they said we cannot develop any more new oil and gas sites anywhere in the world. And that's the IEA coming out with it. Okay, we've got another more cars, motorbikes coming through. There's another car coming through. So now have a conversation. It looks like there's another person in the front, or is that the same person? Do you know?
Who, the person in the front?
Yeah, was that the same person? He's moved positions. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have the driver has moved positions in the van, and I think I can confirm it looks like it's a male driver.
Yes.
Yeah. It's quite hard to see. Yeah. So he's been sitting in there the whole time. Got a flag waving in the blue sunshine. Oh, blue skies. Okay. The Grand Gargantuous cherry pickers now going up. We've got 3 people on board. So at the same time we have these police cars are going back behind, so it looks like they're ferrying people backwards and forwards somewhere. Got a lift going up. Now, if you look at the care that has been taken during this, if we had the same care our world leaders giving to the major issues facing humanity, the world would be in a much better place. Got some more cars sneaking through at the back. So it looks like now the banners are being removed from the top. Yeah, so this looks like it's going to take a little bit of a while. Let's go and see what's happening in different locations. Over to you.
Davini.
Yeah. Let's be careful. What do we do? Which bit? There is a roadblock taking place to bring to light to the G7 countries that are all sitting on a negotiation table around climate and ecological collapse. And we're asking that they start to deliver on their promises, because we've heard these words before. The climate and ecological emergency was declared 2019, and since then we've seen no real action taken place by our government. They have been feeding us the words that we want to hear, but no action has feasibly taken place. And this is the demand that we're making here today, is to request that people actually do what they're saying they're going to do, because communities are going to collapse. And this is a really good example of when food scarcity happens and water scarcity happens, the rich will make sure that they have enough, and they will deploy the arms, the boats, the ships, the weapons, and they will protect their own, but they will not look to you as a community or give you any protection. Who is this ring of fence of police officers here? Who are they here to serve? Because really, this is what is going to happen when we have a climate and ecological emergency. We had 40% less food produced in this country, crop fail. That crop failure of 40% would have meant, had we not had international supplies, that we would be fighting each other for food on our table. Food on our table that right now, we don't need to fight, and we don't need to get into that position of fighting for resources and food and water. And in 25 years' time, we are going to be fighting for water, drinking water in this country. So really what we're requesting is that the governments that are all collecting together here in St. Ives is to actually realise that they hold a lot of power, a lot of wealth, And that wealth needs to be distributed because this is a global dialogue. It's a global solution. We need to be all working together, and we can find those answers if we work together. It is imperative as a human species that we actually now sit at the negotiating table and share and deploy globally for solutions. The time for talking is over. It's the time for acting. And that's what we're asking here. That's what the demand has been requested here throughout this weekend by multiple different movements have arrived here. This isn't just Exile here. This is many other movements arrived here this weekend, all asking the same demand. But actually, if I choose not to take action now, we will all be suffering in the longer term. So from hearts to minds, we need to get to action because words are empty. And look at these beautiful rebels here in the middle of the road. They're being fed and being looked after by the local community here in St. Ives, because the local community have already seen how they've been forgotten by their governments and politicians in this part of Cornwall. Cornwall is, in terms of social equality and poverty, it is suffering as we speak today. COVID really showed what would happen in a climate and ecological collapse. It would mean that the rich would be looking after themselves and the everyday person with their families would struggle, would be left to fend for themselves, whilst our governments ensure that their individual friends and the corporates are all benefiting and feeding themselves, and leaving very little left on the table for the everyday person. And so we've had a warm reception here in St. Ives by the community and the locals who really have seen the suffering of what happens to their farmers. They're at the front line of what's already happening to farmers here in Cornwall and to the fishermen here in Cornwall. We know that the seas are dying. We know that the land is dying. How are we going to feed ourselves as a population if these two things are happening? So really, communities have been mobilizing, and that's the point. Come and join your community. Be part of the change. Be part of the revolution, because you know what? We can address climate and ecological emergency if we work together. And communities need to decide what they need and ask for those requests for meeting their needs, because right now, communities are being left to fend for themselves with little support from governments.
Normally, like Mum would have been given a non-invasive person. I would have died, like just after a simple birthday. Considering Glass 94, you know what I mean? Well, those two clips over there. Next time, lovely woman, yeah? We never said that it's shopping, did it? Not in my spot, to me. You have to hear it. You can do it on screen. Yeah. Are you on screen live right now? Do you want to give me your mic?
Director Vlad, would you be able to confirm if you can hear the sound, please? Okay, Vivini, go for it. Yeah.
You want to give me your mic so I can?
It's fine. It's on my.
All right. Okay. Hi. So, welcome and thank you to St. Ives community. You've been fabulous, and this is what it looks like when communities get together and they hold people in government account to what's happening. There you go. Maybe that's better. This is how you mobilize your community. Get together, work together, and hold those that are no longer listening to your needs to account, because each of us working together can find the answers to this. And whilst our government sits in empty promises and empty slogans, and we're going to be fed a lot of these, we need action from them. And this is the call to G7 to recognise that the global south is already suffering. Millions of people are suffering from food shortages and water shortages. The farmers in India have shown, and that's the biggest resistance here in India, that they cannot be forced into corporate greed by the governments, because we need to feed the population of our countries. Now, this country lost 40% of its crop this year. If it had not been
for imports, this country would be struggling to feed ourselves. If you ever need to point away from me, you can. You don't have to stay on my face. I can continue to chat if something happens, yeah. And really, what's happening here is to recognise that each and every one, whichever position of power you're in, whether you're a police officer or whether you're the everyday person, because the police officer has family and children that they've got to feed, as we do as individuals. Are we going to be fighting each other for food? Because right now, this is a standoff of occupation of land. It's not a road, it's land. And when you understand what's Am I okay? Yeah. This weekend what happened is they put a ring fence across a section of land this weekend, preventing the local community from moving around and their freedoms. And those freedoms are hard by. We are not caged animals where we to be told where we can and cannot go. And this is ultimately what's going to happen. As land becomes scarce in terms of its ability to create food, because we put so much toxin in it that it's desertification happening, all the bits of land that are still agricultural and crops produced, they won't be coming down to the communities here. They won't be feeding any of us here. They'll be feeding themselves, just as they have been doing this weekend. Right up there, they've been feeding themselves, keeping them secure, putting warships onto our seas and deploying troops with guns on our street. That is the reality that we're going to fight. We're going to be fighting for food and water if the ecological and climate collapse actions don't take place soon. And that is the call. For you as communities here in St. Ives, just as we do in London and just up and down the country, we need to get together and find each other, build trust, and then mobilise together to hold people in power to account, because we know the answers, we know how to look after our communities. We need to be given the power to do so, and that means sharing of resources, sharing of money, and sharing of power. For now, I'm going to leave you here because we have got to stand up. I guess it's going to be a bit of a sit-in now, so let's see what happens, and we'll be back later.
So we now have the 4 wheels have now been strapped. The van in the centre has got a rope going around it and a rope up across the top. I'm going to zoom in. You can see an officer is lying down on the van. Looks like they're looking at the lock-on. We've got 2 more police officers just behind, standing on the van. You have one still on the cherry picker. There's adjusting the ropes. So it looks like they're ready to move the van as soon as people are moved off. They've managed to clear one of the roads is now clear, so cars can get through. Just going to pick up what Vinny was speaking about the world hunger and the fact that we've had now already 2019, 2020 severe droughts were happening in southern Madagascar. 1.3 million people under severe food stress. Many people resorting to actually eating muck. The clay there is just about edible if it's boiled up. We've got 30 million people in the world at the moment who are relying on support from other countries to get fed. We've got more cars coming through. Convoys going through. So we're seeing these stresses. Okay, you can just see, I'm going to zoom in a little bit, you can see the 2 rebels holding their hands together. Go a little bit closer, try not to shake. You can just make out that they're holding on to each other. We're very privileged in this country that we have the right to actually protest. Yes, if you break the law, you will go to court. Judges will decide punishments. But in other countries, they're not so lucky. Other countries, people are trying to protect their own environment, their habitat, homes, getting killed. There's a large coal mine expansion happening in South Africa. And just before Christmas, one of the local leaders, grandmother, who was very defiant against the mining company because they just come in and they literally clear all the homelands and they just bulldoze everything and they start mining. And the compensation that they get is not enough, that they can't actually move, they can't afford to move. And they were protesting against it, and next thing they came in and armed men shot the grandmother in front of the grandchildren, just so the coal mine could go ahead. So we get to hear some of these stories, and we're still very lucky that we're in a country where we do have the right to protest. Protests like this now, it's going to get picked up hopefully by the media. But then again, the media is failing us. Day 2 was all about getting the media to tell the truth. Another interesting conversation over the weekend was just talking to different people of when they learned actually how bad the crisis was. And I was speaking to one of the photographers now here, part of XOR, who was going through Oxford Circus in April 2 years ago, and he picked up a flyer and he saw a big pink boat and wondered what the hell was going on here, and he couldn't believe it, and he thought, like, nah, this is a complete exaggeration. Went back and started looking into it himself and reading up on it, and was actually so shocked to discover everything he was told on the streets was true that he went and now joined Extinction Rebellion and spends pretty much all his spare time doing this. So it's kind of like an awakening going on. So anything that you can do, it's up to us as all individuals to take action and to act now. Because if we wait on our world leaders, it's never going to happen. If we wait on a political system, it's never going to happen. Moving in 5-year cycles, they get funded by wealthy donors, they have agendas in place. And a lot of the attitude of the rich is it's not going to affect them. They don't want the high carbon lifestyle to change. It's an inconvenient truth. Choose to ignore it. Actually, probably what worse, instead of just choosing to ignore it, they pretend they're actually doing something about it. And they put targets in place that are not kept and not met. Empty promises. Just going to zoom in a little bit more. Just going to walk around a little bit. Get a slightly different angle. See what's going on. Okay. I got a better angle. So you got 4 police officers, 2 in ladders, 1 on top of the van. You can just see the protesters' legs. He's lying belly down on top of the van. Cherry picker is moving. So it looked like a jack or an angle grinder has just gone back into the cherry picker.
Can you hear it?
Got another climber has just gone on, going up a ladder. Cameraman's just arrived. I think from the BBC. This is part of it. A lot of pressure is going on the BBC to tell the truth. There's been a lot of protests outside the BBC house. Not reporting the true extent of the climate emergency. Most notable from the BBC was the report that came out by NOAA, Northern Oceanic Atmospheric Association, which is part of the US government, and they got all the leading scientific papers and studies and correlated all the information from satellite. So it's the most comprehensive study ever done on the Arctic and the cryosphere, which is the frozen water on this planet. And you might have heard of a thing called the Arctic death spiral, and it's every year it's the shrinking of the Arctic ice. And NOAA released this report, a very, very scary report, bringing forward the first time we're going to have a blue ocean event. That's when we have no ice in the Arctic during the summer. Instead of reflecting all the solar energy, 97-98% of it back out into space like it normally does, because it's white, albedo effect, the deep blue ocean actually starts absorbing vast amount of solar energy. About 60-70% actually gets absorbed. And this event, it's estimated that it will happen by 2034 or earlier. So that's only 13 years time. We could actually have the first blue ocean event, or even earlier than that. If you've never heard of it, you've never seen it, I advise you to go and Google the blue ocean, or Google the Arctic death spiral, or actually go straight to the source and Google NOAA blue ocean event and have a read about it. It's a major tipping point, and that was not reported by the BBC or any of our main news outlets in this country. And if it wasn't reported here, it probably wasn't reported in most countries in the world. But don't worry, we still have celebrity gossip, football, and yeah, just random stuff that they fill the pages with. No more brains. Just going to pass you over to Zoe now.
Hi. Hello. So we are at the roundabout. Do you want to tell me what's going on?
Oh yes, I'm live here with Extinction Rebellion at the G7 summit in Carbis Bay, Cornwall. And what we have here is a protest, a lock-on protest to highlight the lack of action by the G7 leaders at this conference. So the protest is really about The G7 leaders are some of the richest nations in the world, and they are the ones with the most power and the most capability to take action on climate change now. And if you read the reports to government in the past 15 years, it's clear to the most sceptical person that failure to take action now is actually genocidal and possibly criminal. And these are the leaders in the world. I was speaking to a lady from Namibia a couple of months ago she says she has no power. She lives in a country with no political power. She lives in a country which uses minimal resources compared to these. And she's sat there waiting for us here in these G7 countries to make the decisions which will affect her country first. She's already at 1.9 degrees of global warming while we sit here and faff about and do nothing and just carry on business as usual in agreements that mean nothing, to trade carbon credits which don't actually achieve what they set out to achieve and are a false solution. We need our leaders, the most powerful leaders and the most capable countries in the world, to take genuine leadership on climate change now.
And any other messages you want to say? What would you like to say? A message of support for the protesters?
I'd absolutely love to say a message. This whole protest at Carbis Bay was so well organised. People are so brave going up there and getting arrested. And our samba band, I congratulate them. They've kept us all motivated and cheered up throughout the whole time of being afraid and scared. Thank you.
And if people were thinking of joining Extinction Rebellion, what would you say to them?
I'd like to say go to the Extinction Rebellion UK main website and you can find your local group and ask about how to join. And you don't necessarily have to do anything quite like this. You can join in a variety of different ways, which are non-arrestable, creative, artistic, or any way to put the message out there in a variety of different formats.
So Extinction Rebellion have done quite a lot of actions over the last few days. Have you got any highlights?
It's all been absolutely fantastically well arranged. The Ocean Rebellion march, the projection, the flotilla, the oil rig, the marches themselves, all the variety of the penitents, everything was a highlight for me. And this just tops it off. This is how we must do acts like these now to get the attention of these leaders who are stuck in this political process which is leading us nowhere, and it's leading people in the global south nowhere faster than it's going to lead us there.
Anything else you want to add? Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll go back to watching what's going on with the van. Oh, someone's being arrested over there. I'm not sure what that's linked to. Got one arrest happening over there. Not sure if they're linked to this at all. They're being taken off over there by the police in front of the police vehicle. On top of the van, we've got the lock-ons that are lying there. I can see that they're holding hands. It must be an incredibly nervous time for them lying there with police sort of working on the equipment that they're locked to. Incredibly brave. It's an extremely hot day today. They're lying there out there in the sun on the van that's blocking the roundabout. More vehicles are going through around the front of the police vehicle now. So all of the vehicles passing will know that we'll have seen their signs. We've got still drowning in promises, act now, and G7, where's your plan? And that's about the climate crisis. That's what these actions are all about, is trying to hear what the plan is. They can make lots of promises, they can make their decisions while they're all sitting around enjoying themselves, but they need to actually act now. And that means no more fossil fuels, no more investment in fossil fuels. We've got our banks investing in fossil fuels. We've got decisions being made which are highly produce huge amounts of carbon, such as expanding Heathrow. When we had the crisis, with COVID, we suddenly had no flights in the air, and we had to suddenly start thinking differently, and we need to basically think differently. This is a moment to create change in the way that the whole of society operates, and not try and get back to normal, not try and have an ever-expanding economy that is not sustainable on a finite planet. The protesters on the roof they've had goggles put on them. That might mean that they're about to use cutting equipment, making sure that their eyes are protected. And there's something very poignant for me, which is that they're holding hands, and that just feels super powerful, probably giving each other a bit of strength in this incredibly nerve-wracking time, lying there, having the equipment, while the police plan to cut the equipment from them. And to keep just filming them so that we can see what is going on. The man in the...
Just give a thumbs up just
there. Yeah, just got a thumbs up from the police officer, who can't see his police number, not identified as police, but I believe he is a policeman up there on the crane, on the cherry picker, as they were known during the road protest days of the 90s. I feel like these messages about the climate change, they've been said for 30 years. People know the science, they know what needs to be done, and what we need immediately is action. No more making promises, no more breaking those promises. I thought that people were all going to act after COP25. I was there, I saw Naomi Klein giving a really powerful speech towards the end of it, how they'd settled for 1.5 degrees, and I thought maybe that was going to be what the world started working towards. But it doesn't seem that. They just seem to be ever expanding more power stations, and building power stations which aren't using sustainable fuels. So we do live in a really crazy world, and at the moment some of us in the global north aren't affected by it, but people are beginning to see the effects of climate change already. They're definitely seeing them in the global south, and we are seeing them in the global north as well, with the way that crops are changing, more extreme weather, both in rainfall and lack of rainfall. Climate change doesn't choose who it's going to affect. It's going to affect every single person on this planet, and it's just that a few wealthy minority will be able to ride that catastrophe for longer or better than the majority of us. Looks like the police are discussing with the protesters. I still see those hands clenched together. I hope I haven't lost my signal. Sorry about that little blip. Wi-Fi. So the police are there negotiating with the people on the top of the vehicle. They're lying, they seem to be facing away from the police behind them. I think that's... And I'm wondering if we're going to hear the power saws of police cutting through, trying to get through their arm lock. So arm locks have been used in protest for quite a few years now. They're made of different substances. Sometimes they are layered with different substances, which and sometimes concrete, sometimes steel, and the layers need different saws to get through, so they become a very solid point to lock to, so the protesters can't be picked up and moved away. So it's a tube, and they put their arms inside the tube, and you often have one person going into each end of that tube. So they've got an arm lock between their two arms. There's been some great banners over the last few days down here. There were banners from the bridges driving down to Cornwall, and so many people would have seen those banners and seen the messages on them. asking the G7 to act now and to make the right decisions. That we're watching you. And those leaders, surely they would like to be remembered in history as making the right decisions around the climate emergency, and not the ones that were in power and did not act when action was so desperately needed. See, climbing rope with a carabiner has just been connected onto one of the lock-on members on the top of the vehicle. Not sure what he's clipped it onto. So he's attached another rope on. So he's got his, the policemen have got their climbing harnesses and lots of carabiners and rope. So I'm not sure what they've put around the protesters, but I'm imagining that might be to stop them falling from the vehicle. He's standing astride the protester and locking that carabiner on inside the cherry picker container. So I first came across cherry pickers at the M11 road protest. That was in East London. People trying to stop the road, which was going to divide up a community. And also right back then, that was in 93 to sort of 96, saying that, we don't want more roads, we want more sustainable public transport. The cherry pickers were used to remove protesters then. They occupied rooftops, they occupied buildings, and they also occupied a tree. The tree was occupied by protesters, and people wrote letters to them in the tree. This is at the M11 road protest in the early 90s. And because they had had letters arrive there, it made the tree a legal dwelling, and they then got squatters' rights of the tree. They held it for I think, many weeks there before they were eventually evicted and the tree cut down. And the tree was like a central point in a park where children played and people gathered. So it was very much a sort of heart of the community. And that community now has several lanes of road cutting right through the middle of it. So I'm trying to see what the policemen's hands are doing. They've got gloves on. I think they're probably trying to work out how they're going to get through that arm lock on the top of the vehicle. Lots of discussions going on. I can see the protester face down. Great. I think we're going to be here quite a while. Let's go see what's happening over at the other location.
Hi everyone, we are here at the other roadblock location. The Samba band had taken a break, and everyone was having food. So they've all been fed now. A lot of them had Cornish pastries, which is really nice. And the Samba band is about to start. So hopefully you can still hear me speak after the Samba band has started playing again. So just an update. This is the second location which we've done a roadblock. There's several people glued on to the streets, and on the other side over there, 2 people are locked on. Around me, there's a lot of support from the local community over here. They've been providing food. They're dancing along to the Samba band. And pretty much like overall the vibe is really nice. We're here on day 3 of the G7 summit, and today was the day that the G7 leaders would have spoken about the climate crisis and about nature. We're here to raise awareness and also hold the G7 nations leaders accountable for the promises that they make us. So far, it's all been false promises. They've been saying stuff. They've been greenwashing us with loads of targets, but they're not acting accordingly. They're not acting in line with the Paris Agreement, nor in line with the 2030 net zero target either. The Paris Agreement was supposed to limit the global warming by 1.5 degrees Celsius. But we are currently on track for a 3-degree increase in global temperatures with our current policies in place. My friend Fergal was earlier speaking about climate tipping points. That's one of the really scary issues when it comes to climate change. As the sea ice melts, the water is exposed to more sun, and the sea is dark in color. So that means it attracts or absorbs more sunlight, more heat, which in turn will melt more ice, and that ice, which is melting on a huge scale, will raise sea levels. As we see sea levels rising already in so many places over the last few decades, sea levels are actually accelerating. Sea level increase is accelerating, and within the next few years, or the next few decades, we'll start to see many cities, many villages, many towns underwater. And in fact, much of Cornwall is actually going to be underwater by 2100.
So we've now just had one of the protesters has come in on the cherry picker, standing up. She's now getting led away by 2 female officers. Wearing a t-shirt saying "Disobey," distinction rating symbol on the back. And we now have just a man on top of the van who's getting rolled over, getting a harness put on him. He's got a water bottle in his hand, and he's also wearing a hard hat with goggles. That was probably to protect his eyes while they were cutting through, it looked like a metal pipe. Now we have the cherry picker is going back up again. Walk over this way, let's get a slightly different angle. There you go. It's funny, from this angle it looks like he's holding a surfboard. Cherry picker's going down. Walk around the other side, so just get a better view. Got some more locals who've arrived. What I need to do is just keep on following the photographers. They always know the best angles. Okay, he's now being loaded onto the cherry picker. Police are removing the surfboard. Wonder they're going to use that later. Looks like he's sitting down in the cherry picker. Police are removing the ladders down. They're checking out the inside of the van, so we still got one protester inside the van. Can't see how his hands are, but he might be handcuffed or something to the steering wheel, it looks like. There we go, we can see now the face of the rebel. Oh, very nice, they're putting a hat back on him. Protect him from the sun. He's now getting led away. Oh. So now we've got one person left inside the van. It's quite bright from here, so I'm just going to move around here. Okay, you can just see what's going on here inside the van now. Yeah, it looks like he's attached to the steering wheel. Not too sure what that is. It's got like, oh sorry, it's a mask in his hand. He's now standing up. So again, just a reminder, if you're just tuning in, what's going on here. It's the last day of the G7 summit, which is now finished here in St. Ives in Cornwall, the very bottom southwest of the island of Britain, the United Kingdom. We've had world leaders over from Japan, Italy, France, Germany, Canada, UK, and of course the new President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, who's been talking big about the climate and about what he's going to do. But what we do know is the likes of the United States, up until recently, have been the biggest polluters, just overtaken now by China. Okay, we've got a... It looks like he's coming out now. Oh. Gonna zoom back out again. There you go.
So back here at the van, I can see the handcuffs being held by the police. They're doing a quick body search of the third person to be arrested on this location. A lot of police surrounding him. I've got press photographers over here. And I think I'm not sure. I think the police are just talking away with him at the moment. Saw handcuffs being put on him inside the van, so assuming he is now under arrest and will be taken off to a police station. I imagine there'll be some police support needed for when they come out of the stations later on today. We've now got policemen come in. They're handing over everything they're finding in his pockets. Looks like a mask and a notebook. I don't know if there's more people inside the van or if that's all the people removed and whether they'll be removing the van shortly or whether it will be here for some time. We've got 2 road blockades going on this afternoon here. This one's on the outskirts of St Ives, the other one's I think within St Ives itself. He looks quite happy, doesn't look too traumatised by the event. Just patting down his legs now. Seeing what they find in his pocket. They've removed the attachments they had to the wheels of the van, so I think that was put in place in order to make sure the van didn't move while people were working on the roof, removing the protests, while the police were removing the protesters, so that the van didn't suddenly roll away, etc. Which would have been quite bad while the protesters were attached to the cherry picker. They seem quite jolly, chatting away to each other. I wonder what these different policemen actually think about the climate emergency, noticing its effects and yet being asked to do this job where they're removing protesters who are trying to make the climate emergency be top of the agenda for the G7 leaders during their discussions at the summit. Removing protesters who are trying to put the climate crisis on the news agenda, trying to get both politicians and the media to tell the truth about this climate emergency. The cherry picker's about to try and move, but he has a police vehicle right behind him. So I don't think he's going anywhere for the foreseeable future. I think it might all be quite quiet here for a while until the vehicle moves. So should we go and see what's happening at cherry picker going up again? I think it's just packing away. So we could head back over. Oh, what's it doing? It's got some stabilisers sticking out at the front there, sticking the vehicle. Oh, it's going up on the stabilisers and down. So yes, it's packing up, getting ready to move off.
Which way do you want to go out?
Don't know if you could hear that, but he's asking which way he wants to go out. Be interesting driving that around the small country lanes here in beautiful Cornwall. So amazing planning and preparation gone on by Extinction Rebellion protesters here in the southwest. They've pulled together so many actions over the last 2.5 days. Absolutely incredible artwork that's been on display, theatrical performances. We've had projections onto cruise ships. We've had flotillas of boats. And an incredible amount of work has gone into preparing all those demonstrations and costumes. We had the penitents yesterday. I think there was over 100 penitents, most that they've had in one place, with amazing costumes, walking through the town of Falmouth. And their penitents were to show that they'd committed a crime and or committed something wrong. And the idea was that this generation, by not acting, is damaging the future generations, and will be looked back. This inaction will be looked back on as criminal. We're changing the future of the next generations by not acting now. I'm just going to take us back to the van. And the policeman with harnesses is just shutting doors. I guess they're going to, not sure what they're preparing to do at this point, but currently that van is still in place, still blocking this side of the roundabout, which is one of the main routes into St Ives. And in Carbis Bay, within St Ives, is where the G7 leaders are come together to discuss various issues. But are they discussing the climate emergency? Is that top of their agenda? And we don't want empty promises of 1.5 degrees like they said in Paris, but then not acting on it. They know what the scientists have said what needs to happen, where we need to be by which years, and our government needs to make sure that those actions to get to those points, to keep us under 1.5 degrees, need to happen. And we're nowhere near that. I don't think it's even necessarily possible now. But yeah, we need to listen to the scientists. We need to act now. It'd be good to go and see. Oh, we've got Fergal's back on. Can't hear Fergal at the moment, but let's go over to Fergal and hear what he's got.
Vlad, can you hear me? Just doing a quick. There we go. So thanks for that, Zoe. So the gargantuous cherry picker is now gone. We've still got cars that are just snaking through. The banners have been removed, the flags have been removed and actually put back into the van. A lot of the police have now moved away from here as well. They're now packing up, the specialist team, the climbing team, packing up, putting their belongings away. They probably had a relatively easy weekend. So just following up from what Zoe was saying, it was quite a lot of the rhetoric is about empty promises, about greenwashing, and greenwashing is having these promises of action. The message on the side of this van has been to act now. So a policeman now is coming out of the van, checking things over. Yeah, we're talking again about the failures of these. G7 it's not a negotiation; it's an elitist club. So, in case you're just joining us, we are in St Ives on day 3 of the G7. And the G7 is the I suppose it's the rich boys club. It's the rich boys and girls club. So they had the 7 leaders of the most advanced financial countries in the world, and they invited South Korea, Australia, India come and take part in different negotiations. They had ministers from the different countries coming. They get together, several major topics going on, one of them being taxation, corporation tax, which again it's very convenient for the richer countries in the world to have a fixed taxation. But What's been going on here with Extinction Rebellion is actually highlighting the failure and the greenwashing of all 7 leaders and their friends for not taking the urgent action that's needed. Okay, so we've got the police van is now just driven away. So I don't understand why. I thought they were going to try and tow it. Yeah, maybe that truck was just there to stabilise the wheels. But all that's left now is an empty van, and it's a reflection of the empty promises that we keep on hearing from our leaders, from our politicians, from our business leaders. People are needed to make a difference. We've seen it with the hydrocarbon oil companies, Shell talking about decarbonising, yet their whole business model is extracting oil and gas from the ground and burning it. Recently at the Science Museum in London, a couple of weeks ago, we had scientists from Extinction Rebellion chained on to the Our Future Planet exhibition sponsored by Shell, which is greenwashing at its worst. For every £1 or dollar Shell spend on renewable energy, they spend $23, 23 times more on hydrocarbon expansion, oil expansion and infrastructure. So this is the greenwashing that we're talking about. It doesn't just happen in oil and gas companies, it happens in large, huge companies that make water with sugar, and they sell plastic bottles that are made from hydrocarbons. In the UK, we have a huge factory up in Scotland belonging to Ineos, and they use so much energy there creating raw plastic that is equivalent of all the electrical energy from Edinburgh, Dundee combined. And the raw materials that they use to make the plastics is actually hydraulically fracked gas from the United States, which is the worst type of natural gas you can have, with methane leaks, the energy that actually goes into extracting the fracked gas, and also the hundreds of millions of gallons of water that is actually needed to be pumped down into fracking wells, mixed with chemicals and sands to force the gas up. So in the UK, we talk about that we're a world leader. Boris talks about being a world leader. What's actually really happening is it's greenwashing of its worst type. People believe by recycling that they're going to save the planet, and if people keep on believing what the politicians are telling them, we've got no hope. But the hope we do have is people like we've seen today taking direct action, calling out the government, calling out the ministers, highlighting the fact that we are in a climate emergency and we all do need to act. And we heard earlier on the beach as well from Marvini, very inspirational speech for the fact that if you're listening to this, then you actually acknowledge and understand that we are in a crisis and you have a moral responsibility to act. You don't actually have to go and block a road with a van and climb on top of it with a tube and get arrested. You can if you want, if that's what if you want to do, but there's so many different things you can do. We heard from Veril earlier saying you can join kind of different organisations, you can community groups, transition towns, you can start lobbying your politicians, but the most important thing is that you act, and as an individual you do everything you can to be calling out the climate emergency. Calling your local radio stations, having discussions with your schools, your kids, your children, your friends, your family, everybody. You know, so we've got people like this who are giving up their civil liberties and getting arrested to highlight the plight that we're in. You know, and if you're at home watching this, you can share. You can also go onto Twitter. You can go and lobby your local MP if you're in a different country. You can go and lobby your local government. You can join a local group. If you're not part of Extinction Rebellion and you quite fancy it, just remember this is a non-violent organisation. So it's completely non-violent. So it's based on the Gandhi principle of civil disobedience, to call out the government and to call out the actual legal systems that we got in place. The legal systems that allow peaceful protesters to go to jail. Peaceful protesting that's happening, the likes of seeing a barrister in the United Kingdom facing jail for taking a stance against the third runway. Heathrow is already the largest CO2 emitter in the United Kingdom, and with the third runway it will be just adding 50% more, destroying homes and encouraging more people to fly. So we've got these super infrastructure projects that are not taking into consideration the Paris Accords. Okay, so we've got the van that's just been started now. That's okay. Okay, so under the watchful eyes of about 20 police officers, he's trying to make a turn. There we go. I wonder will he get stopped? So this roundabout is now free again. We've got the first car going back now down the other road. So I don't exactly know what's happening in the other sites. So maybe we could get a bit of an update from there.
Hi everyone, we are at the second location. There's been interesting developments over here actually. So the demonstration has ended. Most of the people who were inside this zebra crossing island have come out now. There were the few people that were glued on got themselves unglued. There's one person remaining actually who is still glued on, and you can see in the footage over here that the police have surrounded them. They're still trying to get him unglued. There's a few people I think who might get arrested. Just in the far corner, we can see, if you can see, there's a few police officers speaking to a few people. So I think 1, 2, 3, 4. I think police have surrounded about 4 to 5 people over here. But most of the people who were in this zebra crossing island over here have just walked out basically after the demonstration was over, exactly at 5 p.m. So here are the scenes at the minute. The person in front of me over here is still glued on, and traffic is being allowed to pass through on the other side now. The police numbers are back down because the other side is free, has been freed up now. So yeah, we're just waiting to see what happens with this rebel over here in front of us. There's quite a few press over here taking pictures of the rebel being unglued at the moment. These are the scenes from behind me.
He's heading off towards St Ives at the moment. Not sure if they're going towards protests or Carvers Bay, heading at quite a speed off there. Excuse me, I was just wondering, why are the police going through there?
I just didn't tell you.
No?
There must be something ongoing down there or up
Okay,
there.
I can hear lots more police coming through as well. Yeah, lots of police sirens are going on, not quite sure what that's about. And nor does the policeman. I think head back to the other protest site within St Ives. Over here it's been cleared. And yeah, I'm going to sign off from this location. So thanks for watching. Go and check out Extinction Rebellion's website, and let's head over to the other demo in St Ives. Bye for now.
Custody transport. Yeah.
Yeah, you chaps. Okay.
Where do you want it to get to?
Wait. So what's he been arrested for? Oh, okay, so what, you're going to have a stop search, you can seize that, it's just possession of articles. You just see that on the 19. Emulate and supercode are not going to arrest. If you've got his details, if he refuses to give it, regardless of the format, then if he refuses to give it, then he will be arrested. That's social behaviour by sitting there, disrupting the community and also being loud. So it's only because.
So we're back here to the second location. There's still one person glued on. They're trying to get him out as we speak. On the far right over there, just where the bus is passing by, there's one person being arrested. The police van has just opened its back doors. There's people singing in the background. A lot of police surrounding the guy who's glued on over here at the minute. Traffic is being allowed to pass through now. So it looks like just one person at the minute over there is going to be arrested. And it looks like the person in front of us as well is still glued on. Might be. The protester removal team is here to remove them now. Really, really uplifting scenes from today, from here, music playing in the background, and just really good feelings from everyone. As the demonstrations come to an end on day 3 of the G7 summit. Right. We're seeing government official cars sort of passing by as well. Huge, overwhelming support from everyone over here for the rebel who is being unglued at the minute. We're all really, really grateful for everyone over here, for everyone's time that they've given to be here in person and do what's necessary for our younger generations, for the generations to come, to raise enough awareness so that governments can take action in time to get everyone involved so that we can prevent the catastrophic consequences of the climate crisis. So on the other side now, we can see someone. I think someone's being arrested. I'm not so sure yet. Oh, okay. So the guy who's glued on is now being taken away. He's being arrested. There he walks away in the blue shirt. Really, really brave scenes. I'm just really, really grateful and have so much respect for people who have sacrificed their time and have chosen to be there, to glue themselves in love for this planet, in love for future generations and the other generations to come. Police are now getting him in the van. He was cuffed on the back of his hands. So far, it looks like it's just been one person who is arrested.
I saw you earlier. You were so brave.
Okay. So some people were questioned for a long time, questioned by the police for a long time, and they were released, as far as we know. So at the minute, I believe it's just one person who's being arrested. Traffic is passing by on both sides now. So they've got him into the van, closing the doors now. And things look like they're wrapping up over here. There's great, really, really good scenes from the other side. Okay. To everyone that has joined us today, thank you for all your support. It's been an interesting 3 days of demonstrations here in Cornwall. We're grateful for everyone who tuned in, and also for all the rebels who have given their time over here. If you're watching this live, please continue to support us. Join your local XR group, and it does. If protest is not your thing, there's so many other ways that you can join in. The scenes from in front of us at the minute was one of the locations where we blocked the road, asking G7 leaders to act now on the climate crisis before it's too late, and to keep their promises. We want the climate targets to be set in and law so that governments around the world can be held accountable for taking actions or for not taking actions to meet the Paris Agreement or to meet the net zero targets. We're also calling on the UK government to use a citizens' assembly to decide on issues around the climate crisis. Because, for example, we have seen how the governments have approached the COVID crisis. They always wait for the last minute, and we think that they're going to do the same for the climate crisis. But the climate crisis is going to be a lot worse than the COVID crisis. They're mainly going to see people in the global south being affected severely. We're going to see droughts, we're going to see wildfires, we're going to see sea level rises, we're going to see cities underwater. And all of this, if we don't act now, if we don't put pressure on our government to take the necessary action. We're now seeing police vans driving away, and the island in front of us is being cleared. Yes, so far it's just been one person who was arrested over here. It's been a really good day over here, really good scenes. And just want to say thank you to everyone who joined us today. Thank you for all your support. And please, join in. It's been a really fun 3 days of demonstrating here in Cornwall, and really pleased to say that. But I'm really happy that to see the support that we got from the local Cornish, the local Cornish people, and I think I'm going to end it over there. Thank you all for joining in. Keep an eye out for future events, and look on our website for more information on how to join. And just keep sending the messages of support through as well. Cool. Thank you very much. And please.
So the G7 governments are meeting, and the decisions they make and the actions they take have huge ramifications in this year, at the beginning of the 2020s, at this moment in the climate crisis. They will set a precedent of action or inaction for the rest of the world. It's time to deliver on all the promises they've made in the past, and then step up to the scale of the challenge we already know we face. This is the time for leadership. G7, act now.
I'm asking today for G7 leaders to use their power for not just their own countries, but for planet Earth. Because we are all interconnected and the time is now. Please remember that what happens here has a global effect, and there is millions of displaced people from environmental collapse today in the global south. There is millions of people starving today. Make it now, where we learn what solidarity means. Solidarity requires us to see each other as the same, equal. It means sharing power, it means sharing resources, and it means sharing privilege. There is no future without all of us working together.
Let there be no doubt about it. We are not all in the same boat. There is no equality in this existential planetary crisis. There is no justice in the climate and ecological crisis. Climate crisis is injustice. Climate crisis is inequality. Climate crisis is white supremacy. Climate crisis is patriarchy. Climate crisis is racism. Climate crisis is sexism. Climate crisis is adultism. Climate crisis is ableism. Climate crisis is racial injustice. Climate crisis is social injustice. Climate chaos divides us between the haves and have-nots, between the rich and poor, between the black and white, between the disabled and able-bodied, between the privileged and underprivileged. There is no unity in the climate and ecological crisis. There are those who run to higher ground and those left behind. Unless you see this, unless you see me, unless your fight is bound with mine, unless my survival is your survival, unless my children are your children, unless my air is your air, unless my land is your land, unless my life is your life, unless my future and your future is their future, unless their future is all that matters, all is lost.
The climate crisis. The climate crisis is a crisis for women.
I grew up here around brick and concrete, busy roads, gridlock. I'm 40 years old now and nothing's changed.
The government has told us to prepare for a 4-degree warmer world. I don't think the public knows or understands. That means extinction, it means the end of everything. Start listening and start telling the truth, because the blood is on your hands.
We never know what consequences our actions will take. Like, never underestimate your actions.